And he told me, he goes, "Oh, you have a scar on the top of your head." That's the only place I'd ever had stitches. And I have to do this. I have to know about this. It's like an EKG of what's going on mentally, emotionally, and physically in your body.
Hello, spiritual friends, and welcome to another episode of Life Ascended. I hope you are as excited as I am for this episode. I have a really special guest that I'm bringing on today. Her name is Anna Quigley, and she is a certified graphologist, having practiced and spoken on this for over 20 years. So exciting to have this wisdom. She is also a transformational catalyst, speaking and coaching on how to navigate life with clear direction. So, using your internal GPS, which is your intuition. Her practice includes how to use visualization and mind body techniques to achieve your goals. Thank you so much, Anna, for coming on. I'm so excited.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, I would love to start out just by why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get started in this path? How did this even come about?
It was in a bar when I was, younger, just chatting with a friend, and he said, "Oh, let me do your handwriting," and I'm, yeah, okay, fine. We're just sitting out in a courtyard, beautiful day, and enjoying that. And he told me, he goes, "Oh, you have a scar on the top of your head." That's the only place I'd ever had stitches, hit with a mallet by my brother when we were little kids.
Oh, wow,
And I'm
interesting.
like, "Okay, wait a minute. How do you know that?" And he goes, "Well, it's in your handwriting." And I'm like, it freaked me out a little bit. I'm like, "What?" I'd always been fascinated by it, but that was it. And I said, "How did you learn this? Who did you learn this from?" And he introduced me to a woman who had been, oh, she's phenomenal, gifted in this, and I was in Denver at the time, so lived in Colorado, and was teaching courses. She'd done a lot of famous trials where she was the graphology expert. So
Yeah.
there's so many fascinating stories from her, and as I have to do this, I have to know about this, and took her course and
Mm.
became certified with that. So it was interesting. My favorite class in that, well, one of them was one where we drank wine and we watched our I love wine. We watched our handwriting change. So you'd have a sip,
Oh.
and you'd start and you'd write, and then you'd have another sip, and then you'd have another sip. I remember to the point where we got drunk, but where you
Uh-huh.
where you could start to see how things that you ingest change your handwriting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So,
Everything. Handwriting really, it's EKGs. How does the doctor know what all of those zigzags mean? I have
mhm,
no idea, but they've learned those are brain signals, mental signals that
yeah.
are really written out on paper, if you will, or on the electronics. Well, it's no different than your handwriting.
Mm.
It's the thought starts in your head, and mentally, this is what I want to write, and it's like an EKG of what's going on mentally, emotionally, and physically in your body.
Wow. Yeah, that is so interesting. And that's why they use graphology to do like criminal cases
Right.
and like if somebody were to write out a suicide note, for example, they would want to analyze that.
Exactly.
It's so
Exactly.
useful, but I when they said they were going to stop teaching cursive in school, I was so upset and I don't even have kids. And I'm like, there is something wrong
Let's
with
see.
this.
I agree. They're like, "Why do you need it?" And it's like, oh, it just I think it goes back to the ancient hieroglyphics. It's like it's another more fluid way, but the same information comes. I can analyze printing. I analyze typewriting. believe it or not, but
Oh,
only certain elements like spacing and how people use the space and
oh,
that kind of thing.
interesting.
But obviously, it's limited.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be a lot more limited.
I tried Arabic, and again, there were certain elements of it and certain strokes, knowing how it's written. It makes it a little more challenging, and that's not a specialty of mine.
So is it true that people can actually use graphology to change their life and their behavior? Is that
Absolutely,
really true?
absolutely. It's called graphotherapy.
Okay.
And one very simple technique for improving energy, and I wish I had a sample I would show you, but I can explain it. Um, Writing T's, the
Hmm.
letter T, the crossing where the you cross the T is a good example of if your energy's low. If you've got the T and the crossing is down here, that's a little indicative of lower energy. um, Crossing the T at the top, as long as it touches, is really strong energy. If it's off, that tells you another thing. If the T starts over here and doesn't touch, that gives you something else. So T's are really interesting and informative. But if you're feeling tired, sluggish, your energy's low, a very simple graphotherapy that you can test and check your moods doing it yourself is just to write like a page of T. And you can just keep doing the same T, but cross every one and make sure the crossing is strong and attached.
So should it be a capital T or a small t?
It can be a small T, because
Okay.
then you've got kind of the fluid where you do, T,
Hmm.
T, but that's less important than
Hmm.
the fact that you have a strong, like, as solid T.
Hmm.
And 5 minutes of that, if you do a full page, it's amazing. It's
Mm.
amazing. um, I dots, capital I's. There's books been written just on capital I's,
Hmm.
uh, how you do that, and there's association with that, with your independence, with your relationship to your maternal side and your paternal side.
Mm.
Where you identify most strongly. So just there's a
Yeah.
few key letters like that that are really
So
impactful. But yes, you can. You
yeah,
can. Thank
so I'm
you.
just thinking, quite a lot of listeners might be a little bit like me. They're empathic, they're, sensitive, spiritual type people. You know, um, I find that a lot of people like that tend to attract partners who are maybe more narcissistic, or they get stepped on a lot, right? They just can be overly accommodating and over pleasing type people. What would be the best thing to do for handwriting to fix that?
It's really interesting that you bring that up. Literally last night, I was watching something that talked, or reading something that talked about that, the narcissistic personality and the people that tend to be attractive because they're pleasing and they're very forgiving. And
Exactly.
rather than going, not, no, I'm not, I don't need that behavior. Bye bye.
Hmm.
So there's several things. I would need to see more of the writing,
Hmm.
but a confidence level, definitely,
Hmm.
of the T, so that your energy is strong. There are there are three tiers in your writing, if you think about it. And again, remember the old three lines, the two solid lines and the dotted line that we probably all learned cursive
Oh,
writing.
sure. Yeah, when you first
When
learned.
you first start, you've got,
Yeah.
okay, the middle letters, the A's, and the bottom of the B's and the bottom of the D has to be in that bottom half. And
Hmm.
then the upper loop and then the lower loop gets to go below that. Um, for things like that, I would make sure that your A's closed,
Mm.
where you have an opening at the top, or it's a little bit soft, that those things close. That gives a little more um, open S's. You
Hmm.
do a loop S, and maybe the bottom doesn't connect, or there's a big loop at the bottom of the S, the cursive S,
Uh-huh.
represents a little bit more of easy to, easily suggestible, more
Mm.
easily suggestible. So something like that, making sure that those middle letters are closed and
Okay.
tightened up, makes you a
Mhm.
little less malleable, if you
Yeah.
will.
So like a boundary, like setting your boundaries maybe, or
A little bit, yeah, less susceptible to just being talked into things,
Mhm.
and which narcissists are, extremely skilled at doing.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
and
Yeah.
having someone that's passive and that's more passive, that wants to, and more forgiving, that and less concerned about their own safety or their own
Mhm.
self-care than they
Yeah.
are their partner or that person.
Mhm.
Closing those, making sure those mid-range level letters are closed. So you do your S
Mhm.
probably backwards, but make sure that those pieces touch and
Yeah.
not open. So
So what's the difference of people who write like really tiny letters versus people that write like the big letters?
I think the one thing I hear the most often is, "Oh, my handwriting, I don't have good handwriting." It's like, it doesn't matter. So everybody can take that off the table. It doesn't matter if you write like a psychopath, as long as your letters don't say you are a psychopath, you know?
Right, yeah.
Messy doesn't matter. That's we don't even look at that, and I don't even read. People have said, "Here, read this," and they're like, "You didn't laugh." And I go,
Mm,
"Oh, I didn't read it." I'm looking at individual characters.
yeah.
So messy doesn't matter. Small and large, it depends on if it's the entire script or if it's individual letters. If an individual letter tends to be more dominant, if it's the lower loop that's big, or the upper loop. Obviously the upper loops, like on the L or the top of the D. That's we're talking about future. We're talking about the future. We're talking about that. The lower
Mhm,
loops represent more your past. So
mhm,
how those are shaped. But in general, if someone writes very small, it's focus, as you would expect, somebody that's really careful, really meticulous. Now, if their writing has open loops, it could be a dedication to staying open, to not, making commitments, to just letting themselves be kind of taken aside. But that's an odd combination to see. More apt to see that with the larger writing,
uh-huh.
So
Hmm,
yours
yeah.
is interesting because you have a combination of cursive and print.
Oh, yes, yes. Shall we pull up my handwriting sample?
Sure.
You know, deep inside, it's time for change, time for growth. You're ready to manifest your dreams, but the next steps may feel unclear. Maybe you've worked with the law of attraction, meditated, and done the inner work, but something still feels out of reach. It's time to stop trying to do it all on your own. Now you have the opportunity to join the free Portals of Abundance membership. Inside, you'll receive powerful training and gifts designed to up-level your life across 5 key areas: health, wealth, love, purpose, and ascension. Explore transformative tools like uplifting custom songs, energetic attunements, invocations to raise your vibration, and 5-day challenges to activate change and retrain your brain. Plus, you're invited to join Cynthia's live monthly Cup of Love group heart healing, where you can heal your heart chambers while accessing higher states of love. There's no obligation and it's completely free. Visit ascension17.com/membership to sign up today, because your ascension is calling. Now, back to the episode. Here, so just so everybody knows, I did a little sample handwriting for this for today's talk, and it's going to be really interesting to see, because I do not know anything about this. So yeah, so here we go. This was something I wrote just the other day.
Well, one of the first things is you look at spacing. So, and that tells us a lot about how you manage your time. So
Okay.
if you were to look at this, it's pretty well balanced. You've got about as much space on the left as you have on the right. So
Mm-hmm.
that tells me that you're efficient with your time management. That you start pretty much even on the left side. So, you've given yourself some space. You're not, maybe not you're giving yourself time to think and to plan. You're not rushing into something where you're starting like right on the very far edge. That might be somebody who just, hey, you got to get going, got to get going. So
Hmm.
you're giving yourself time to plan on that. And then on the right side, if you went all the way to the edge of the other, that's somebody who doesn't know how to manage time as well.
Oh,
As just
interesting.
always like, oh, running to the last minute. You balanced it very well
Hmm.
uh, with that. You have again in spacing, you've got you're generous with the spacing, not only between the lines, but even in between your words, and that it tells us a couple of things. And again, a lot of this has to be combined with individual letters, but in general, that shows a generosity of nature.
Hmm.
You're allowing space, you're open, there's a fluidity in your writing. It also indicates a good sense of intuition.
Oh,
So you're
good.
leaving, yeah.
Yay. Which we'll be talking about a little more in
We
a
can
little
talk
bit
about a
later.
little bit too, but yeah, good sense of intuition.
Hmm.
You don't have, again, some of this is a combination of the fact that you write cursive and combination of print, which I tend to do too quite often. If you'll notice, you don't have beginning strokes on your writing. When we're
What do
taught,
you mean by that?
well, when we're taught cursive, you start on the bottom line and you make your A and then you come down. You don't have those. I wish I could had a pointer here. So, for instance, look at on the fourth line, always.
Okay, right here.
It starts at the very top. The A starts at the very top. It
Oh,
doesn't have that foundation
mm-hmm.
letter
Okay.
or line that, okay, if you go down two more rows and look at the word exhale into
Okay.
your own, you see that beginning stroke on the baseline in front of the E?
Uh-huh.
That's the foundational stroke. When
Oh,
we're taught
okay.
cursive, we're taught to have that on the
Right.
A, and you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that. So there's another sign of efficiency,
Hmm. Okay.
of efficiency.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah. Your capital I, that indicates
Here.
a great deal of independence.
That sounds like me.
You are your own person. You don't, and I see this in your signature as well. You have a better, stronger sense of who you are as an individual, and not so much of a tie to your family or to
Hmm.
the family members. You've
For sure.
flown out of the nest. You're who you are. You're less tied to like a relationship with your mother or with your dad, or being controlled by those early relationships.
Hmm. Yeah,
So that
definitely.
independent I, the way you have that written, is very strong independent sense
Hmm.
uh, of self.
Mm-hmm.
Good detail, and little eye dots tell you that. If you had a little heart over your eyes, that's more of a juvenile
Yeah.
characteristic. You'll see, teenage girls, young girls doing that a
I
lot.
never did that.
Yeah, I never did either. It wasn't my thing, but I see it. I do see it.
Uh-huh.
So that tells you that your dots are pretty much over the eye. If
Yeah.
they're off, flaring in a little dash instead of, that's kind of
Mhm.
a little more sense of urgency,
Hmm.
but you're pretty well detailed. If you
Yeah.
look, at your, and see, again, efficiency, if you look at like heart or
Mhm.
strife, there's none of the beginning strokes that
Mhm.
you get right to it. You're very efficient. You manage your time well.
Hmm.
um, and manage that. Although I see, because you have a certain flow in your writing,
Mhm.
you come and your moods kind of shift. You can be very fluid in changing your mood throughout the day.
Yeah.
Not radically, but some people are just very static, consistent with how they feel. You're very fluid
Mhm.
is really the best way I can
Yeah,
express.
I would agree with that. I tend to have, maybe a little more energy in the afternoon versus the morning. And, I like to take my time in the morning. I like to do my all my tarot cards in the morning. I have like 7 or 8 decks I'll pull cards from. And, I do sort of a meditative thing in the morning. And then, yeah, I don't know if
And
that shows up in there.
Well, and that shows up again in the left margin. You're
Hmm.
giving yourself time. You're not jumping into things immediately. You're giving yourself that time. So that, yes, that does show up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hate just like having to get up and just like go, go, go first thing in the morning. I hate that.
Mhm.
I prefer to have my pot of coffee. I don't have just a cup. I have like a whole pot.
Okay.
And I just like to, chill out with my music and do my cards and kind of contemplate, what's my day going to look like. And, you know, yeah, I'd say that's interesting. But should we look at my some of my older samples?
Well, let's stay on this for just 1 minute because I want to talk about your T crossings.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah,
Let's
just since
let's
we
look at
already,
those.
yeah, since we started. So, all right. So with what I told you, what would you tell me about your T crossings?
Well, it looks like some of them are okay.
Well, they're all
Um,
okay. There's nothing wrong with any of
yeah, right.
them.
But yeah, I'd say they're mostly in the middle.
Mhm.
A couple of them are maybe a little bit low. Like this one might be a little bit low.
And the kind of curved shape on
Yeah.
that T, if I saw that consistently through your writing,
Yeah.
would tell me, and it's down on the those and the this message here down on the bottom, is that you're doing a little bit of bending your will. So it would be you're on some
Mm.
self-improvement,
Okay.
um, as far as handling your own energy. Now your capital T's, like this, there's
Mhm.
the crossing is very strong. It's consistent. It
Yeah.
some start strong and then they kind of fade out at the right hand side. Yours are very
Okay.
strong. They are attached to the stem, so
Mhm.
that's really good energy. One thing I would suggest you kind of play with is,
Mhm.
for instance, on the ever present down there, you've got, it looks more like a cross and a T, and just start, paying attention to maybe getting those T crosses a little higher on the stem,
Okay. A little
just
higher
for a
and
little that
straight.
stamina and energy. Yeah, the curving, I mean, the curving, fine, you're working on, improving. That's not an
Mhm.
issue. But for energy and stamina,
Mhm.
getting those T crossings a little bit higher, keeping them strong
Mhm.
and steady as you have
Hmm.
on those, can help a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's certainly useful. Okay, everybody get writing your T's. Pay attention.
Get riding your T's.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so should we look at an older
Yeah,
sample
sure.
now?
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
All right. So yeah, so this is an old signature back when I was married before. So this is definitely over 10 years old.
And signatures in general, when I get samples of writing, I never just take signatures, because
Mm,
signatures are who you want the world to see you as.
right.
Because people are going to be seeing that. It's on a document, it's on a check, it's on an agreement. It's
Mhm.
not totally expressive of who you really are. It's who you want people to see you as.
Uh-huh.
So I will always get signatures in addition, but when I
Mm-hmm.
get samples, it needs to be, as I asked you, just
Mm-hmm.
something pre-thought, not
Mm-hmm.
memorized, not, the quick
Yeah.
brown box, just
Okay.
something
Well, we can
very
go.
casual.
Yeah, we can go to, what about this page here? Should we look at this a little
Sure,
bit?
sure.
So this was back on a meditation I did back in like 2018. And I keep journals and stuff. So this was just notes that I was taking.
Okay. Let me move a thing. And if you look at the spacing on the page, it's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to
Yeah,
what we just looked at.
right.
So that aspect of your personality really hasn't changed. You're giving yourself time
Hmm.
with your coffee and your meditation and all of your, your morning rituals, which is I need to do more of personally, really,
Hmm.
to,
Yes.
to make sure that I do that. Not, I tend to want to just jump into the day or end up getting sucked into it. So that's one of the things I'm working on, but very, very centered, and lots of space on the right, room for extra, you're a lot of opportunity coming there, but very consistent. Um,
Hmm.
the flow is pretty much the same without line. Oh, that's the other thing too. With samples, I
Yeah,
wanted on unlined paper, so people
right.
aren't following. Then you get a better sense of, is it sloping up? Is it sloping down? That's a pretty
Mhm.
obvious one. If it's sloping up, it's more optimistic. If everything's slanting down, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say depression, but there, it indicates a mood
Yeah,
shift,
sure.
a mood.
Yeah.
So
And I
just,
would say for the most part, my handwriting is pretty straight across,
mhm,
you
mhm.
know?
Yeah, even
And that,
without lines,
mhm.
where I've seen things, on the other without lines, it's pretty much within the line though, you've got a lot of little, which is just kind of the, day-to-day shifts in mood but it's nothing like one word's like a quarter of an inch higher than another.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And you give again, lots of space between the words, generosity, open to intuition,
Hmm.
um, no beginning strokes on your A's.
Mhm. Okay.
All of that's good. So,
All
yeah,
right. Well,
yeah,
very good. Well, thank
yeah.
you.
Let's go back to the signature on the
Yeah,
other,
which signature would you like to
the
go
one
to?
that you had all three of them, because I want to
Okay, sure.
just
Yeah, let's
because
go over
we
there.
were talking about identity, um, on the where you had three of them together. There we go.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah, these are pretty current signatures, so just from the other day.
sure. And really, if you look at that, and it goes along with that capital I that you do, where you have, the cross on the top and the bottom,
Mhm.
which is more individual identity. You identify more strongly with yourself than necessarily family. If you look at your first name, the capital C is
Mhm.
larger in Cynthia, and then
Mhm.
the initial A still strong and large, and Clark is a little smaller,
Yeah, that's
which
true.
is like, yeah, no, that's my family. I have, connection there, but really the stronger sense of self is who you are as an individual,
Hmm. So that's because the first name is stronger than the last name.
because the first name is you. The
Mhm.
last name is the family name that
Right,
you were
sure.
raised with. So, if the last name was noticeably, even reversed that way, it would be you have a stronger sense, and nothing bad. It's
Mhm.
just you have a stronger sense of family and connection with family than you do maybe as far as your individual self.
Hmm. Yeah,
And in that
interesting.
case, your capital I would be no, most certainly written differently, with the loops where, you'll have the I
Yeah.
and the bottom and the two loops, and that would be, or your stronger identification with your mother or stronger identification with your father.
Now I added the A into my signature much more recently. Do you think that was a good move?
Let me ask you, why did you add that? Is that your middle initial? I'm
It
assuming it.
is. Yep. That's my middle initial. Yep.
Okay. And so what are you communicating with adding that?
Well, okay. So I'll be straightforward on this. I read a graphology book a few years ago. It
Mhm.
was probably the one and only book I ever read on it. So I'm definitely not an expert, and I'm not, that's why I was so interested in what you would say about it. I remember there was a reason because it was in that book. It was like you should put in your middle initial, or it was something about the A, and I can't remember now what it was.
Well, again, it strengthens your individual identity.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, some people want to put their entire middle name in there. That's like even more so. It's like, no, I'm not just Cynthia. I'm Cynthia Ann or Ann or whatever
Yeah,
your name.
Alice is my middle name.
Alice. Okay.
Alice, yeah.
And the A is interesting too. The initial, the top one, you have this little swerve, kind of like a little more fluid. That's creativity.
Hmm.
Uh, the capital C on Cynthia, it's like confidence and yeah, notice me, I'm here.
Mhm.
It's ego, a little bit showing. It's like strong sense of self.
Mhm.
Um, the middle A looks more like a star.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It definitely, the bottom one kind of is a little bit in
Kind of
between the two.
in between the first two.
Yeah, so the star is another like, I'm here, know me. I got it. I got it going on. So
Yeah.
adding that again, it's strengthening your individual identity and really putting yourself out there.
Well,
So
that's perfect because that's what I'm trying to do.
do it. Yeah,
So, I think
definitely. And you're reinforcing it with the line underneath.
yes,
And that's
yes.
another, notice me, I'm here. And this is what you're doing with your life.
Mhm.
You're sharing who you are and your gifts.
Right. Yeah, I'm
And
very
you're
public now compared to
very
what I
public.
used to be.
So you're announcing that. Yeah,
Mhm.
compared to that other signature, it's almost illegible, which it doesn't matter, but it's just kind of like you're not letting yourself be seen
Hmm.
in
So
that.
yeah, so the people who do sign their signature like that, like a doctor, you can't read any of it. Like, how do you interpret that?
Well, some of it, it's like I'm too important. I can't be bothered. I'm too important. You don't need to.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to. You don't need the details. I'm just here. Um, it's like yeah, and that's definitely strong ego. That's
Sure,
definitely
sure. That makes
so.
sense.
Well,
Interesting.
one of the other things we haven't really talked about, and I won't go into too much detail on this, but you and I chatted about it before. One of the things that's fascinating and that got me into learning about this was the fact that someone looked at my handwriting and told me I had a scar that nobody could see because it's hidden under my hair. So how
Yeah.
the heck did he see that? And
Yeah,
I
tell
mean,
me. Yeah, tell me
I,
about that
I'm
story. How did that
and
even come
I
about?
know it's like this is magic. What are you, psychic? Which is cool too. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. There are strokes that you can see in handwriting. Cancer will show up.
Wow, that's
Injuries,
amazing.
physical injuries, like this scar that probably was 3 or 4 years old that I had
Wow.
on my head. And that was at that point, I'd never even broken a bone, so it
Mhm.
was the only anything that had an issue. And I used to do this for fun when I was in the sales manager, and I'd go out with the teams and stuff, or I'd be at a meeting, we'd be having dinner, and I was sitting with someone at this very nice white tablecloth, lovely restaurant, and he's like, "Well, no, do me, do me, do me, do me."
Uh-huh.
I always had so much fun doing this. Um, and I'm like, okay, fine, and I was looking at his writing and I'm like, oh, I said, oh, you've got a really bad scar on your left shin, in the middle of your left shin. And he just went,
Mm.
gobsmacked.
Yeah.
He goes, how do you, what? And I said, no, yeah, no, on the left shin. This guy stood up in this really nice restaurant and starts pulling his pant leg up next to the table. And I'm like, no, no, sit down. And he goes, no, I need to show you. No, I said, I just told you it was there. You don't need to prove anything to me. He
Wow,
goes, no,
that's
but it's
hilarious.
really there. Look, look. It was
Mm,
so funny. It was so
yeah,
funny because he was like, no, I have to show you. And I said,
yeah,
I know it's there,
yeah.
so
So,
it's
so
fun to
my
surprise people.
question, yeah, so I have a question about that. So if it's still showing up in your handwriting, does that mean that you haven't healed from it, or
No,
is it something that you need to, maybe get therapy on or work on?
well, certainly not a scar on your leg.
Yeah.
It's there. That's not going away.
Okay.
But everything, and the same thing with the EKG or the EEGs or everything that we've experienced in our lives, every emotional trauma, every physical trauma. Now, cancer will go away, won't show in your writing once cancer's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But things like scars, those are permanent. Emotional
Mm,
trauma can still show up in that. Yes, obviously, those kinds of things we hope to heal. And that's
yeah.
what we're here for, right? Is to
Yeah, for
heal
sure.
and learn these lessons and heal these things. But because it was an experience, it's stored in your brain. Our brain has
Hmm.
all of our experiences in our life,
Yeah.
the physical wounds and the emotional ones. And
Hmm.
those two, again, that's why in some handwriting you can see suicidal tendencies. Never
Hmm.
a good thing to do.
No. So,
Um,
so what would be a suicidal tendency, besides maybe just like dropping down at the
yeah,
end?
there'd be it's not any one thing, and that's
Hmm.
where really working with all of the writing
Hmm.
samples, it would
Yeah.
be a combination. You're just having your T crossings low. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not suicide, or you're writing slanting a little bit. That's
Hmm.
not it. But a combination of what letters are closed or aren't closed, or if you're
Mm,
supposed to have a loop and you don't. It's a series that are just kind of build a picture.
yeah.
It's not any one thing that you go, oh, hey, you need help.
Yeah.
A combination of things. So
Yeah.
nothing to take lightly, but
No, for sure. I
some,
mean, I've known people who were suicidal. And so it makes me think back on their handwriting, you know. Um, but
but
yeah,
yeah, you would need to really do an assessment and look at
yeah.
all of the areas that could build not just people, we all get depressed, we all have moments of sadness
Hmm.
or mourning, we have had a traumatic experience, ideally hopefully just a temporary one, and
Hmm.
that'll show up and then it fades away. The other concern I get is that, oh, my handwriting's changed. Well, good. Have you changed? Are you still this person you were 10 years ago
Yeah.
when you were 15? No, of course not.
Uh-huh.
Your
Right.
handwriting always changes because
Sure.
you're always changing. So, and
Yeah.
this is where graphotherapy makes sense. Your
Definitely.
writing's changing anyway. If you can learn
Hmm.
specific things to do, if you want to be more independent of your family, let's
Hmm.
let's stick with the capital I. You
Hmm.
don't want to feel as connected or so tied to maybe a mother or a narcissistic parent or
Hmm.
spouse. Do the capital I with the, like yours is, a straight line and two strong crossings at the
Yeah.
bottom. That's more independent. So just do a page of those
Hmm.
regularly, and just areas like that, you're kind of sending the signal back like an EKG signal back into your brain. Like, no, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this. We're gonna
Yeah.
do a little bit of
Well,
this.
I just love this conversation because it just reinforces how many ways we can learn about ourselves.
So much.
And there's so many amazing tools to guide you in your life. And you don't have to be a victim to your life. And so if you have, a challenge, like if you're a beautiful person who attracts narcissists, for example, it's like, well, what can you do to change it? Well, isn't it amazing that you could just change a couple of things in your handwriting
Mhm.
and you're going to start to feel that shift in probably a pretty quick amount of time, I would assume, you know?
And with specifics, again, you want to just the repetitive. So every day do the T crossings, or
Mhm.
every day do a line of A's. If your middle letters are all open,
Mhm.
that can mean a number of things, but it can also be, like the lower loop of the S. That's just okay. I'll do what you want. A little less combination. So combination of tightening those, closing that loop,
Mhm.
and maybe the independent I, and the T crossing. You're just feeling sluggish. You're just feeling tired that day.
Mhm.
Do a half a page of T's with a strong,
Yeah,
make
for
a point,
sure.
strong T crossing, and test it.
Mhm.
Try it. See if you notice the difference, if you don't notice the difference. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
definitely.
fun to have. It's nice to have some control.
Yeah,
There's
for
so many
sure.
things we don't have control over, but it's just little ways that
Yeah.
you
Well,
can. Oh,
it's like I always say, the internal world reflects outwardly. So if you do
that's
nothing
exactly
else but work on yourself, your outer world eventually will match that. It
real
takes a
true.
little bit of time. But that leads
Everything.
us right into your other topic of intuition and your internal GPS. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that title. Like, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So,
And if I'm going a little woo-woo, I came up with that doing a mastermind one time, and I thought, oh yeah, my guidance. It's like my car's GPS, but I call it my God positioning system.
oh,
It
nice.
could be your sixth sense, your divine guidance, your inner wisdom, your spidey sense.
Yes, your superhero
Your
sense.
superhero sense, which it is. It is
Yeah,
that as well. So whatever you want to call it, it's built in. We would not have survived the Neanderthal age if intuition wasn't built into us. There's no way,
yeah.
we would have
Well,
gone past
and
that.
and
So,
I would like to just talk a little bit about that too, because it seems to me like there are there people poo-poo that type of stuff, right? Like, oh, you're not being logical,
yeah.
and you like it's all about being in the brain and the head and it's like, okay, yeah, that's all well and good, but there's like a whole nother aspect to who we are that is I find way more valuable than our brain.
Oh,
Um
and there's a place for the rational mind. I mean, the whole idea of mind body connection, it's not just one. Every
right.
one of our organs speaks to every other one of our organs, but it does it chemically.
Mhm.
Our intuition balances that out. I mean, cavemen, cave women, they had to live with instinct. That had to be their primary. But as we've become industrialized and gone, our rational mind has become it. How many people are list makers? Okay, we're going to make a list. And I'm going on vacation. Okay, I'm going to stay at this hotel. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there.
Mhm.
As opposed to getting off a plane, going to your hotel and go, oh, where do I want to go today? Staying
Yeah.
open and letting your intuition kind of guide you. I love taking off and doing solo travels, but there's room for both,
Yeah,
and both are critical.
sure.
Um, I'm pulling something up here just because if I can find it, and I'm not doing that, but I have I have one little example that I use, especially when I'm talking to kids. And I call it Obi-Wan, the wisdom of Obi-Wan. Everybody knows that Star Wars scene
For
at
sure.
the first Star Wars where they're got to blow up the Death Star, and they're zipping around, and Luke's going here and Luke's going there, and they're like, okay, got to shoot the missile, and he whoops, misses it. He's focused on his computer, and he's like, okay, okay, and they're all, oh no, and he goes, try it again, and all of a sudden you hear Obi-Wan, and he's like, Luke, listen to me,
Mhm,
trust the Force, listen to it.
mhm,
And I'm not going to do it. And he's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. He shuts the computer down. Everybody's freaking out. They go, what do you, no, wait, how are you going to do this?
mm.
And he just lets go. And I can feel the energy even talking about that. And he opens up to that, and he knows the exact right moment, hits the button, goes right into the portal,
Mm-hmm.
And they know they've done it. They fly away. The Death Star blows in a million pieces. And,
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan's like, the Force is always with you. The
Yeah.
Force in that scenario, the Force is intuition. Obi-Wan
Yeah.
represents intuition.
Yeah. And I like to think of it too, like your intuition works so much faster than your brain. And I really started to understand that when I learned how to fly an airplane, because everything happens so quickly when you're flying and you do not have time to think about things. You're landing that plane and you have a split second to make up your mind. Do I actually put the wheels down or do I go around? And I had one time where there was a coyote that ran over the runway. And it's like, okay, yeah, I got to make a decision. And you don't have time to think about it. It's like, if I hit this coyote, that's going to be major damage to my plane. It's going to be bad news for everybody. And you have passengers and you're nervous, and it's like, okay, go around. Like, you just make that decision like that. You just do it.
And was that a rational choice? Did you think that through? Did you maybe in a millisecond,
Yeah.
but it was just like, no, turn,
Yeah. Yeah.
how
You
many
literally have split seconds to make that
split
decision.
second? And where did that come from?
Yeah, well, that's your intuition, isn't
That's
it?
the intuition. I also talk about the power of the shower. We're rational and we're doing this. And I just heard a talk by a Nobel winner, a scientist that with Scripps out here, and he was going on and on about all this molecular, and it was fascinating speech. And somebody's like, a lot of students were in the audience, and they're like, oh yeah, I got to work hard. He goes, yeah, working hard is really important. Yes, you have to put the effort in, you have to do that. He said, but honestly, he said, I get most of my best ideas while I'm running around Torrey Pines State Park.
Mm.
And why? And the same thing, that's why I call it the power of the shower. Why do so many people, oh, I'm in the shower. Oh, I just thought of that. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because we're almost like lifting the veil
Mm-hmm.
between the rational mind, which is sometimes a bully, because we're so conditioned. We have to have a list. We have to know where we're going. We have to have a plan. Everything has to be in detail. That shuts out, it blocks off intuition. So what's important for us is learning learning to listen, learning how to recognize it. And that
Mm-hmm.
comes through our body.
Yeah,
That
for
comes through our
sure.
body. It
Mm-hmm.
comes through Einstein. I'm looking at my note. He often said he has his best ideas during periods of relaxation, like bathing, or you're
Yeah.
swimming, or you're hiking, or you're walking on a trail like in that beautiful country behind you, in Sedona. And it's just like, because you're not
Yeah.
forcing, this
Right.
has to be this
You're
way.
not
It has
so
to go.
attached. Yeah.
Not so attached to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I have so many examples of major scientific breakthroughs. And John Lennon, oh yeah, I come up with great song ideas when I'm just relaxing, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, when you're just in that waking state as you're beginning to either fall asleep or wake up in the morning. Oh yeah. And there's so many
Yeah.
things we say like, oh, it just dawned on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's your intuition speaking to you. Oh, I
For
just had
sure.
a thought. You're in the middle of a big project at work. Oh, I just had a thought. What if we did this? Those
Mm-hmm.
are often the big catalysts for invention, for a creative way to solve a problem that your rational mind needs to be involved in. So
Mm-hmm.
ideally, we get the two together,
Mm-hmm.
working a little more cohesively, but it takes practice and learning to listen and
Yeah.
recognize it. So we all know the butterflies, those
Mm-hmm.
wonderful butterflies feeling when we meet somebody and we just, I don't know, I know you from the past. I just feel so connected. I want to get to know you. And
Mm-hmm.
conversely, the same one where you go,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot get out of your space fast enough. Well, what
Yeah,
is that?
for
That's
sure.
not the rational mind. That's our intuition guiding us, going, this is not for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for you. So, um, when people tell me about a certain book, if I hear it 3 times, I go buy that book because I
Mm-hmm.
know there's something in there for me.
Definitely.
Same thing, same thing if you're seeing, I don't know where I'm going on vacation. I don't know if I should go to the mountains or go to the beach. And then every billboard, every sign you see is all about Hawaii or or the
Yes, the
Bahamas. It's like,
universe is communicating
the
with
universe
you.
is communicating. It's
Right.
like, yeah, no, this would be a good place for you to go. So, it's the knowing, we've all had that. I don't know how I know this, but I just
Mhm.
know it, and you know it with such intensity that
Yeah.
you can't ignore it. Well, that's your intuition. So it comes through knowing, it comes through visual cues,
Yeah, it's
uh
like those little goosebumps, right, that
those
you get.
goosebumps, major sign. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
physical, that's the clairsentience they call it, where your
Mhm.
whole body gets that feeling.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
always get goosebumps when I know I'm hearing truth, like spiritual truth.
absolutely. Me too. I do too. Or little hair, the little hairs
Yeah.
stand up, and I love that because I was a muck, and when I was a kid, I could not make a decision. I was so afraid of making the wrong decision. And what if I made this decision? Oh my, I could never change it. I could never make a different, paranoid until I started learning about intuition. And then I started studying everything I could
Mm.
about it. And just the difference. I'm confident, like you say, when you get those goosebumps, it's truth.
Yeah.
It's truth when I see those signs, or I hear that, or I get the little voice. Sometimes it's like
Yeah.
I'm hearing your voice. Sometimes it's just internal, but I've had so many times where it was like there's somebody standing right next to me talking in my ear. Uh,
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, it's all about just making better decisions in your life. If you start to follow your intuition and you start to develop it and trust it, your life is going to flow so much better.
I exactly, exactly. And I don't always do it. I screwed up last week, not listening. It was a very last minute thing. I'm driving home, and I like this one route. It kind of goes by a golf course, and there's more trees, and it's not all freeway. And oh, that's where I like going. And my instinct was like, take the freeway, take the freeway. And it was really quick. And in a split second, I was already past the freeway. Well, one block past that, I got stuck in major construction. So it was
Mm.
another half an hour
Oh, no.
going my beautiful way, which
Yeah.
but that's a lesson. I
Mhm.
didn't listen. Now, had I listened and just go, okay, I don't know why I'm getting that. I'd taken the freeway. It would have
Mhm.
been a nice, smooth, easy ride home. Would I have ever known about the other? No,
Mhm.
no, I would
Right.
never have known. But
Yeah.
I have yet in my own personal life, I know others have challenged me on this, but in my personal experience, it has never been anything but neutral
Mhm.
like that. I wouldn't have known. Why did I do that? Well, okay, I got home safely. That's good. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
I
you could have
this
you avoid an
could have avoided an
accident.
accident, could have, any of that.
Right.
But it's always been for my better, or at least neutral.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
when I don't pay attention, I have some laughable experiences, which I won't go into now, where it's like, really,
Yeah.
I need to go here, and then I have to go to this place, and I got to park here, and I got to do this. And all of a sudden, everything I needed to do was all where I had parked and within feet of each other. And
Mhm.
if I just streamline my morning,
Mhm. Yeah.
streamline my whole thing, simplify, simplify, simplify. And it's
Mm.
just listening, but like I say, I guess last week I didn't pay attention, and there I
I
go. I
know.
had more time to
Yes.
listen to audio tapes.
And then you're like, "Oh, why didn't I do that?"
I know I get so frustrated with myself. So I have
Yeah.
I have a friend that loves to ride like Harleys, and that's his passion. He loves that,
Mm.
and he'd been with a group someplace, and oh, we're having this event later. You need to come back, and he's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. No,
Mhm.
I feel good. I don't need to do that. And his intuition definitely telling him, no, you didn't need to go, but he kind of got not talked into it, because everything's a choice. We
Mhm.
make the conscious decision.
Yeah,
But
for
he
sure.
just let that kind of, well, and her dealing with a narcissist to bring that back, it's
Oh,
easy for
no.
them to kind of go, well, no, you need to do this, and you're feeling
Mhm.
guilty and people pleasing, and okay, well, I'll go.
Mhm.
And he rode his motorcycle and got hit by a car and laid in a ditch for 7 hours, and still
Wow.
has physical things. And he goes, well, I guess I needed to learn that. And I said, no, you didn't. I'm challenged him on that. I said,
Yeah.
there are other ways to learn, but that you took, they say the universal whisper, and then it kind of gets a little louder, and then it brings out the big bat. And he got the big
Yes.
bat.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
got the big bat, but
I completely agree with you on that. I think that a lot of people who go through major stuff, it's because they've been ignoring their intuition for a long time.
yep,
And
yeah.
the universe is like, okay, well, we tried to like give you the whisper, we tried to give you the easy way, and you still weren't paying attention and you still didn't listen. And it's like,
And
yeah.
I just a little personal story. I was raised to be independent. You don't ask for help. You don't, even as a kid, no, just, figure it out and do that. So, lifetime of no, I'll do it myself. I
Yeah, you're
can't.
5. You should know how to do that. What's wrong with you?
And exactly, but that's kind of how I was raised. It's,
I
and
think quite a few of us were like
I
that.
know I'm not alone in that. And I had a couple of opportunities to learn, and I came back around and I got cancer.
Mm,
And there you go. So it was to the point, and I'm fine now. I'll put that in perfect. It's all gone and healthy, and that's
yay.
amazing. They don't even know how I've done it, and I'm like, oh, I could tell you, but my doctor wouldn't believe me.
Right.
Had a lot to do with visualization and mind body connection, but it forced me to have to ask for help.
Mm,
I mean, I had to have help. I
yeah.
had to ask for help, and couldn't lift things. A lot of damage in my back, and so which is now fine, totally fine.
Mm,
And I still every once in a while forget, but mostly it's like, oh yeah, fine, schlep that water and put it in the back of my car.
mm,
I don't
yeah.
have to lift all of that. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna move here and do that. But it took the big bat for me,
Mm,
and it does for a
yeah.
lot of us. So hopefully we can, the more we listen and
Hmm.
learn to
For
recognize
sure.
that. And what's
So,
the lesson in this? Okay, let's get
yeah.
that. I don't want to do it again. And I don't want to come back in my next life and have to do it all over again. So I'm
No, so learn it
whatever my
now.
lessons are, I want it this time.
Yeah, me too.
I'll
That's
get something new
exactly.
next time, but I don't want to carry anything
The
over.
sooner you learn your lessons, the better.
Right there with you.
So tell us, how do people work with you, and how do people reach you?
Uh, intuitionzone.net is my website. Not 100% up yet. They can reach me through info at intuitionzone.net, or Anna, 2 N's, at intuitionzone.net. And reach out to me, and I'm getting my calendar set up on that, but we can do one-on-one coaching. I'm available for speaking if there's a community or a group. I love working with kids. If I had learned about intuition when I was younger, how different, how much easier, how much further along would I be in my life? I don't know. This was my path, so I trust it.
Mm,
But if
lovely.
I can help install and educate and help people learn to listen to their intuition. I have so many stories of people who have found their life purpose when they opened up and listened
Mhm.
to intuition, and that's another passion of mine. But yes, I speak. I do work. I'm doing workshops at a cancer center locally for people to learn to how to use this and use visualization as well as their intuition to kind
Mm,
of help themselves heal and
yeah,
move
it's
through
all
that. But for speaking, I do one-on-one coaching, and I'll do groups, so they can reach me that way.
terrific.
Thank you for
Okay.
that. So
Well,
it's definitely my passion project, and I'm so excited to finally be in a situation where I'm able to do this full time. So it's a
yay.
gift. It's a gift from the universe. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
it's
This was
my
so much
pleasure.
fun. It's so nice to meet a kindred spirit.
We certainly are that. Yes.
And everybody, thank you for tuning in. Remember that you can create your life, and you have so many tools available to you. And start by listening to your intuition a little bit more and start valuing it. And definitely reach out to Anna if you're interested in learning more. And please let me know for the show if you're interested in learning something specific. Please, post in the comments. Please like and follow us so that we can grow the show even bigger and better. And as always, I appreciate each and every one of you. And let's ascend together. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Please show your support by tuning in, following, sharing your comments, and inviting others to listen. Take it further by visiting ascension17.com for deeper spiritual growth, guidance, programs, and products.